You're right on time. Today on RTV News, Rwanda's Chamber of Deputies is collaborating with the government to highlight the political instabilities of the Eastern DRC to the international community. Also coming up, the Office of Ombudsperson revealed that it is conducting research in African countries with low corruption rates to analyze how best to fight corruption. It's good to be with you again. I'm Isabel Masozera. This is RTV News. We begin with regional matters. Rwanda's Chamber of Deputies is collaborating with the government to highlight the political instabilities of Eastern DRC to the international community. The government established a committee to investigate the situation in hopes of improving Rwanda-DRC relations. Prince Manzi starts us off.
This committee is composed of 9 deputies with Honorable Manuel Bugingo as the chairperson and Honorable Alice Muzana as the vice chairperson. The Rwandan Parliament will refer to this report demonstrating for the international community the truth on the insecurities in the Eastern DRC. The Speaker of the Chamber of Deputies, Honorable Bulletin, states that even though this situation is not new, this is the right time as parliamentarians to intervene.
There are some of the things that we said at the executive level, but there are also explanations. But if you always explain things and people don't understand, we as parliamentarians always look for another way. That is why after the explanations as parliamentarians, we established a committee for analyzing, and whatever we shall do should base on their research.
The committee was assigned 7 responsibilities, including deep investigating on the issue between Rwanda and DRC, and demonstrates the speciality of the eastern region of this country and how this region is connected to Rwanda, referring to colonial history. The responsibilities also include determining why issues between the relations of both nations are not completely resolved and continue to manifest from time to time, and how they can be resolved. The Speaker of the Chamber of Deputies, Donatien Mukabalisa, reiterates that deeply analyzing this situation requires knowing the root causes for finding permanent solutions.
We demonstrated the responsibilities of this committee, what to analyze starting with the root cause of the problem that began since the colonial time. And now there are militias like FDLR, which includes perpetrators who committed the genocide against the Tutsi. This is obvious that they want to destabilize Rwanda and want to continue to spread the genocide ideology in the region. So this is basically what we wanted to analyze, and we will found this parliamentary diplomacy in explaining the issue because we found it to be necessary.
This committee of deputies is established shortly after the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Vincent Biruta, elaborates for the parliamentarians the status of this issue that is now worsening as Kinyarwanda-speaking Congolese, especially Tutsi, are being exterminated, and the United Nations states that these killings led to genocide. This is where I think that the Parliament, in collaboration with other government levels, if others don't act, we have to act. And acting includes speaking out. The Parliament has to do something, speaking out about these killings, because we shouldn't stay there without doing anything. In case the established committee defines the 2 months given shot, it can request the Parliament to extend it. Prince Manzi, RTV News.
Moving on, the Office of Ombudsperson revealed that it is conducting research in different African countries with low corruption rates to analyze how best to fight corruption. Now, Rwanda has had low rankings since 2018. However, it maintains its position as the least corrupt country in the East African community. Prince Manzi once more.
The Corruption Perceptions Index demonstrates that Rwanda deducted 5 marks in fighting against corruption. As in 2018, it had 56%, in 2020, it had 54%, in 2021, it had 53%, and numbers of last year, it had 51% and the 54th in 180 countries inspected. The chairperson of the Transparency International Rwanda, Marie Makire Ingabire, states that there are some institutions usually found in corruption, iterating a challenge in its eradication.
How are these markets provided if they tell us that it is online? It doesn't reduce the corruption rates as we think. Did you ever see any mayor accused of corruption? Does it mean that they do not take bribes? You want to tell me that if an official in charge of education places an employee in a certain place and the other close to him, do you think that the mayor does not know that? If a veterinary tells a resident that he will not come if they don't provide money for the transport, are you telling me that the local authorities in the region do not know that? So such cases are always there in every level.
African countries are still behind in fighting against corruption, as they are rated 32%. The Seychelles is the best in African countries with 70%, following is Cape Verde and Botswana with 60%. Rwanda is the fourth with 51% and Mauritius has 50%. No other African country has 50%. The Deputy Ombudsman, Abbas Mukama, states that for some African countries to have excelled in fighting against corruption, it should also be an example to other countries, and that is why Rwanda is going to conduct a fieldwork in those excelled countries. For us to have not progressed, it was not pleasant. It led us to understand the reason why. We will make fieldwork in countries like Cape Verde, that is usually best ranked, to understand the measurements they use for their success. This would lead us into establishing measurements and see the gap in our laws. After knowing what we want, we will provide or request to higher levels for us to progress on better ranks. European countries are ranked best, whereas Denmark and Finland have 90%. Countries with insecurities have low marks, whereas South Sudan and Syria have 13%, and Somalia the last with 12%. In the East African community, Rwanda is the 54th, followed by Tanzania the 19th with 38%, Kenya is the 123rd with 32%, Uganda is the 142nd with 36%, DRC is the 166th with 20%, while Burundi is the 171st with 17%. Prince Manzi, RTV News.
Thank you, Prince. Now to money matters. Some of the traders of electronic equipment in Rwanda say that being able to assemble the equipment in the country increases the chances of them getting it instantly at an affordable price. Now, currently in Rwanda, there are various factories that assemble electronic equipment. However, some of it is still being imported. Olive Ontete has more on this report.
The Electronic Industry and Information Technology Company is one of the leading manufacturers of electronic equipment in Rwanda, which specializes in assembling television sets. Having such factories that assemble electronic equipment in Rwanda is of a great importance because it will be easily accessed and at an affordable price than the usual because they are frequently imported. Banguiha Richard, one of the traders working with this company, emphasized that there is a big difference between importing these tools and getting them assembled in Rwanda.
Those that are assembled in Rwanda are easily accessed compared to the finished product that is usually imported. They are less expensive compared to those imported, and they are currently preferred at the market. Before, TVs were very expensive. For example, the TV with 32 inches usually costed more than 200,000 Rwandan francs. And on promotion, it will be sold at 182,000 Rwandan francs or 165,000 Rwandan francs. But now, from 125,000 Rwandan francs, you can be able to buy a smart TV with HD.
In addition to the fact that this factory comes as a solution to some of the existing challenges, such as high prices and the time it took to reach the dealers, this factory has become a source of employment for various young people who completed their studies in technical vocational schools. Some of these young people who work in this factory say that it has been beneficial to them. Finding this job assisted me to put into practice what I learned during my studies, because most of the time we used to do theories and little practice. I usually used to see television as finished products, but now we assemble it, we put together the motherboard and all the other parts. This significantly increased my skills.
I started working in this factory last year after my graduation, and being hired here benefited me greatly. From the income I get here, I'm able to pay for my daily expenses and also assist my family in various needs.
This electronic industry, information and technology company, which specializes in television assembly in Rwanda, has the ability to manufacture various types of televisions, such as smart and digital televisions, and they are available in all sizes needed at the market, from 24 to 98 inches, as the chief executive officer of the factory explains.
From 24-inch to 98-inch, all of the sets we have. Most of the production in Rwanda market was the very high price. The like 32-inch, the year before last year, the 32 price like 300,000 Rwanda franga. But nowadays we set our price like 130 or 40. Yeah, it means more than 50% has off. He wants to set the famous brand and also let all of the Rwanda guys can get the cheapest and also the best quality and the best service and the best price for the local markets. We want to provide more and more cheapest production to all over the country.
This factory started assembling televisions in Rwanda in 2022, and it has the capacity to manufacture 300 to 400 televisions per day. Olive Nete, RTV News.
Thank you, Olive. This is still RTV News. Now, the 10-year report by Mo Ibrahim Foundation indicates that Rwanda is going on and doing great in all pillars of governance now, especially in regards to providing opportunities for potential investors. We have more in this report. The governance report in Africa from 2012 to 2022 shows in regards to security and law enforcement, Rwanda has improved by 1.4% over the last 10 years. Economic opportunities have risen by 5.6%, and human development has increased by 2.3%, which people from different walks of life agree is a significant improvement in terms of Rwanda's governance.
Tremendous progress has really been made, considering to the past, considering to our different background. I mean, like where we came from and where we are now. I can really say that the tremendous progress has been made in terms of the laws, in terms of conventions. I'm just now talking about UNCRPD that has been ratified in 2008. Rwanda has ratified 8. We also have law protecting, Rwandan law protecting persons with disabilities that has been established in 2008. 2008. All of those show political will. That's what I can really say. I can simply say. And you know that where there's the will, there's the way.
Despite notable progress, Rwanda still has room for improvement because when it comes to human rights and sustainable development, it dropped by 1.1% in the last 10 years. The Secretary General of RAUGA and the head of Rwanda-based NGO striving to build a law-abiding country, Cellular, disagree with the findings of the report.
Where I would say Rwanda was not fairly ranked on the issue of discrimination, fighting discrimination. This is one of the scores where we had less score, and I think looking at Rwanda's progress towards inclusion, various laws, policies to guarantee equality of everyone before the law, rights of persons with disabilities. I think on this aspect, it needs to be rechecked and see if Rwanda's ranking can be made higher.
The Director General of Rwanda Governance Board, Dr. Usta Kaitesi, says that there is a willful neglect of what has been done.
I think generally they show a decline in the areas of democracy, human rights, and inclusion. But I think the question is, how do they define that? In the political rights arena that we look at also in the governance scorecard, we've had elections happen. And part of their challenge is a political perception of elections, not just on the continent, but on Rwanda. Because if you look at it, they take it from 2012, but also their emphasis on what they call a decline comes from the 2016 towards 2017 presidential elections. But we have a lot of elections happening. We just had grassroots elections last year from the very local level. There is inclusion of the youth, there is inclusion of women, and there is inclusion of people with disability. When you come to the parliament, all the political organizations that operate in this country are in parliament. So the definition of inclusion and what exactly they think declined is yet to be understood from my perspective.
Mauritius ranks first, followed by Seychelles. Rwanda is the 12th, however, ranks first in East Africa, with Kenya as a second close, and in 13th place on the continent. Tanzania comes 21st, Uganda 31st, and the Democratic Republic of Congo ranks 49th, while Somalia and South Sudan follow in the last positions. The challenges Africa is grappling with include COVID-19 pandemic, bad governance, the Russia-Ukraine war, and climate change that has caused floods and drought on the African continent, which led researchers to conclude that Africa may not be able to achieve its 2063 agenda. Moving on Tuesday, 31st January, members of Parliament, senators and other stakeholders like the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning, the National Institute of Statistics, in collaboration with UNICEF, held discussions on programs and activities in public financing for children and child poverty aimed at promoting their well-being. Betty Motoni brings us this report.
In various discussions held on Tuesday brought together senators, members of parliament and other government partners in collaboration with UNICEF. Different members from various institutions raised their concerns about challenges that affect families and hinder children's growth and well-being, and poverty was mostly mentioned. When you see poor homes, where 72 out of 1,000 children die before age of 5, and compare it with 30 out of 1,000 who die at the same age in rich homes, although there are still many. You can relate this with the poverty of families. This poverty requires us to increase the financial budget for the program concerning the vulnerable people. Research was made, but I was waiting to hear. This is national resources. So, if they increase the budget, it will help. It seems there is still poverty seen in children who need something supporting them besides breastfeeding, where they need something like milk, eggs, and meat, but they don't get them. But is it the only ones that can support them? I was asking if we can't think about other things like cereals, to help them in porridge, and even add some milk in porridge, or in diet if they can add boiled eggs in vegetables, as she said. The chairperson of the Committee on Social Affairs, Honorable Odeto Maria, said that information shared will help in finding solutions to some of the challenges in nature and use of budget in programs and activities concerning children.
All this will help to build the capacities of members of parliament to use accurate data and evidence in our day-to-day debates, legislative matters, government oversights, and budget allocation, especially. In line with this, I wish to recall when we met in September, you really showed the enthusiasm to work with Parliament and to partner in different fields, and we are grateful that today's session has happened. The session will help parliamentarians to achieve their mandate that is embedded in the 3 pillars of the NST1 And we believe that these discussions are going to help to empower us going forward.
Finding solutions through different institutions and collaboration with different stakeholders has been identified as one of the sustainable solutions to the protection and the well-being of children, as it is explained by the UNICEF representative in Rwanda, Juliana Dindasi.
And that doesn't really happen in Rwanda, which is a huge, huge asset, I think, that the country has. But with anything, there are things that we can learn, there are things that we can figure out how to analyze and how to understand. So I'm really happy that we have been able, with guidance and input from the Ministry of Finance, to undertake this analysis over the last several months. But I'm happy that we have our local expert who's done a lot of this analysis himself to be able to share this with you and to really give us a chance to interrogate some of the issues and the findings and the observations. We have our experts here with us, obviously from the Ministry of Finance, from NCDA on the thematic issues. So I look forward very much to really rich discussion, to learning together, and to seeing how together we can make sure that finances are used for the absolute best interests of children in Rwanda.
Participants of the discussions gathered in various institutions, including the Member of Parliament, senators, and different commissions, Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning, National Child Development, and UNICEF representatives. Betty Mutoni, RTV News.
Thank you, Betty. The National Industrial Research and Development Agency started a study pilot aiming at increasing the value and nutrition of corn grains in order to help schools distribute meals that can support their students' health and growth. Jessica Agasaro filed this report.
At the Remera Protestant School during lunchtime, students in their classroom having their meal consisting corn and beans. The director of this school, Hurikiumukiza Edouard, says that maize is widely an important meal used in the school feeding program since it started.
Kuri ibigori tubagaburira biseye ari ifu akibita kawunga tanga tukabagaburira impungure ariko nazo zimenanguye ukuntu atari za zindi impungure zikoboye nizo dukunze guha abana kandi bibagwa neza cyane hanyuma ubundi tukongeramo n'umuceri.
In order to increase the value and nutrition of corn as one of the most popular grain in school, the National Industrial Research and Development Agency, in collaboration with Vanguard Economics, launched the modified grain flour in school feeding in Rwanda. The senior program manager at the Vanguard Economics reassured that the price won't be the problem.
It's not going to be expensive because the fortified whole grain, we are trying to make it budget neutral. So there's no difference with the refined flour. I think we had just explained it in the workshop we have had this morning. The price will remain the same. We are trying to make sure that the price is not going to be higher. Of course, you know the bio-fortified product is expensive, but we're trying for the fortified whole grain to make it budget neutral so it's affordable for people to buy in different parts of the country. They just need also to understand, even the miller company need to understand the benefit of the fortified whole grain. So it's still the maize that they are processing, but with more vitamins and more of the fiber, which is good for the health.
This study aimed at monitoring the availability of adequate and high-quality cereal-based food. Director General of National Industrial Research Development Agency, Dr. Christian Wihame, says that this research is aimed at the production of fortified whole grain flour won't have any nutrition at waste.
The fortified whole grain this is a new technology we want to use in the milling processing. The one that has been used early, it was the affined products, where first of all, we are losing much of the micronutrients, iron, zinc, some vitamins, which are most essential to the feedings of children, even the people in general. Now, this new technology, what is bringing on board is how we are processing the grain. We don't have to lose those vitamins and microelements. So the processing itself will be changed a bit in order to increase the nutrition capacity of the flour.
Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Local Government, Samuel Dusengiyumva, appreciated the cooperation of research institutes in helping the government to achieve the goals of sustainable development in food security.
I would like to appreciate also the contributions of government institutions who have come together to make this project a reality. Rwanda is a developing nation, and we are striving to achieve sustainable development goals of improved nutrition and food security through innovative and sustainable approaches. It is in this spirit that the government is in support of fortified whole grain in school feeding program, but also in the daily meals that our citizens are having.
The pilot study on the modified whole grain flour was carried out in 81 schools with 73,897 students, demonstrated the feasibility at large scale, budget neutral shift in schools. However, their vision is that in all the districts of Rwanda, that includes 3.6 million schools, counting primary and secondary, can serve the fortified whole grain flour. Jessica Agasaro, RTV News.
And with that, we come to the end of our bulletin. Thank you for choosing RTV News. I am Isabel Masozera. Keep it RTV.